Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Taina Eravara, and I'm also part of the Aboagora organizing committee as the two other wonderful ladies before me presenting our speakers today. So we will start the next session now, and we will have our third AGORA. We have Jules Rochielle Sievert, and she will be talking under the title of Finding Fire, a radical pedagogy that combines legal education, design, and law. Jules Rochielle is a socially engaged artist, arts educator, and legal design educator. And currently, Jules is the creative director of NuLawLab at the Northeastern University School of Law in Boston. But she will be talking to us from New York this afternoon. And NuLawLab transforms law and the way people interact with law through creative and cultural approaches. And we will now hear the pre-recorded session by Jules, and then afterwards she will join us for questions and answers. Enjoy.
Hello, thank you so much for inviting me to present at this symposium. I'm intrigued to learn more about the presenters and to hear from the panelists and other guests that you've assembled. I'm very honored to be here with you today. My name is Jules Rochielle Sievert. I am a socially engaged artist, an arts educator, and a legal design educator. During the pandemic last year, I was also working at the School Museum of Fine Arts at Tufts University, where I taught 2 courses on socially engaged art and 1 on public as form. Reflecting on the prompt of fire, I think that my work in social justice fuels the fire in my practice. My creative work for over 25 years has connected my creativity to various social issues and movements, and I believe in the power of arts and culture as an organizing tool. Over the last 25 years, I've worked on community-based projects in Vancouver, BC, Los Angeles, California, Boston, Massachusetts, New York, and in Den Haag in the Netherlands. Originally, I began to explore the arts through ceramics and archaeology. And at a young age, I was reading and being inspired by the writing and work of Lucy Lepard, the Surrealists, Rick Lowe, Suzanne Lacy, John Cage, and Alan Kaprow. I want to start the presentation today with a quick discussion about some of my studio-based practices and priorities for all of my creative practices. And I prepared a slide here that holds those priorities for you to reflect on as I speak. And then I'm going to talk to you about some of my institutionally based practices at NuLawLab, a program at Northeastern University School of Law where we combine art, law, and design to develop community-based projects and other forms of research and scholarship and student engagement. My work got started really when I was living in Vancouver, BC during the summer of 2000. I had the opportunity to work with a Canadian artist named Elaine Carroll. Together, we forged and created a company called Miscellaneous Productions. Elaine is still the artistic director of Miscellaneous Productions. This nonprofit organization has been running programming for over 20 years and is funded by the Canada Arts Council. We started Miscellaneous Productions with a volunteer board of directors, and I worked with Elaine for 6 years, and we produced 3 projects in Richmond, BC. Miscellaneous Productions is committed to social justice, building racial equity, and their creative process has success in developing long-term connections and relationships in community. The projects often deal with immigration, migration, gang violence, trauma, displacement, and belonging. Each project has about a 2-year-long lifespan, which includes a year-long process of extensive community outreach, research, and planning. The projects offer participants a 1-year-long mentorship program that consists of training and a performance process. The script is co-developed with the community, and this process culminates in a series of open rehearsals and performances. Each project requires about $200,000 to $300,000 to run. We work with other artists, educators, and social workers to become a part of this long-term work. We also have produced and published a magazine that outlines the creative process. In 2007, I decided to move from Vancouver, BC to Los Angeles to study with Suzanne Lacey at Otis College of Art and Design, where I received my master's degree in the social practice of art. I also had the opportunity to work with curator John Spiak at Grand Central Arts Center at Cal State Fullerton University. I wanted to reflect on this project that started as an artist residency. GCAC is a Southern California contemporary art institution with a mission focused on creating collaborative and mutually beneficial outcomes through the creative process. For this residency, I was given a place to live while I worked there and a stipend. And as a part of the work that I do, it's really natural for me to begin community organizing and building partnerships and to fundraise when I begin working someplace as an artist. The residency started in 2011 and it ended in 2013. John is committed to long-term community engagement and focused on examining and exploring how artists can help foster a sense of community and belonging. Working in Santa Ana allowed me to work with very skilled community organizers, which helped me to deepen my awareness of the historic social and racial inequities and the trauma created by racism. I converted my residency studio into a community space during the time that I was working there. This allowed me to conduct extensive community outreach to El Centro, the May Day Coalition, the Kennedy Commission, and the Santa Ana Public Library. Working closely with the Santa Ana Public Library, we worked to turn my storefront space into a site of community organizing, and we started facilitating discussions. We worked together to create a space that fostered conversations between young women to talk about their identity issues. We also used the space in different ways to bring different communities together for other types of conversations about life in Santa Ana. This residency led to another grant in the form of a public art commission within the city of Santa Ana. I was asked to create a public art piece that would engage students of Garfield Elementary School. During this commission, I wore a lot of hats. I worked as a community organizer, a project advisor, a researcher, a media mentor, and as the lead artist for the Story Circle. And here's an image of the sculpture. As you see, I created a spot for a storyteller and children to hear the stories. And this object was situated outside the daycare center and across from Garfield Elementary School. The commission also made available resources to hire arts educators to become embedded at Garfield Elementary School. The principal of Garfield Elementary School really wanted to find a way to utilize some of the resources of the commission to create an arts curriculum program for Garfield Elementary School. So that's what we did. We took an aspect of the commission and I worked to hire two very talented arts educators, Christina Sanchez and Sylvia Ortiz, to work inside the classrooms at Garfield Elementary School to create and to enact a curriculum and to work with children, all of the children in Garfield Elementary School. It was after the project in Santa Ana that I decided that I needed to reflect and find out how I needed to pivot my work. The experience there in Santa Ana and the work that I did with the organizers and activists that I met in Santa Ana that were fighting gentrification and displacement, the whole experience made me think about how I wanted to show up for social justice in my continued work, in my creative life, and in community. So I asked myself, what do I need to do to become a more vigorous advocate for social change? Who do I need to be in contact with? And what other skills do I need to develop to fuel my inspiration for social change? What do I need to do to make more of an impact? Seeking answers to these questions in my creative practice, I moved to Boston in 2013. They had a new initiative interested in bringing creativity into public interest law school. So I applied for that job, I got hired, and I moved my family across the country. Boston is very different from Los Angeles, and this was a significant change. But I was interested in this question as well is, what does it mean to envision a world where everyone is empowered to use the law? And how might we engage with the fields of art and design to create new strategies of legal empowerment? We are the only law school in the country that is focused on integrating arts and culture and design into legal policy and practice. We offer our students and independent researchers a course called the Applied Design Seminar. We have many cooperative learning placements. We have independent research projects and coursework that students can become engaged in. And we've just started opening up research residencies in the field of legal design. I'll start with a few examples of some of our institutional research and our collaborative project work that we do with other departments and scholars and key individuals from community. In this project called Mapping Historical Racial Violence, we developed a dynamic visualization project. We worked in an interdisciplinary design team to create this visualization and to map over 300 incidents to help identify communities and regions impacted by racial violence and drive community-centered interventions that promote restorative justice. This is the great work done by the Civil Rights and Restorative Justice Project at Northeastern University School of Law. And this work is done in collaboration with Dean Melissa Nobles of MIT. The interactive map is the result of the collaboration among CRRJ, NuLawLab, the NuLab for Text Maps and Networks, and Stephen Braun. It was funded through a Northeastern Tier 1 grant, and the map is currently used in trainings being conducted in CRRJ in Massachusetts and the South. And here's part of the digital archive tool that we also help co-design and develop, and it houses the data and information in a reading room linked to civil rights and restorative justice and the casework that they do in the Jim Crow South. Here's another example of a project that we worked on that integrated digital storytelling, data, and archival material. It's the Boston Desegregation Archive, and it is an annotated case law and digital reference, and it is a joint effort between our archive department at Northeastern University, our lab, and the Boston Research Center. And this project focused on exploring the social and historical materials at the center of a major legal case in Boston related to race equity and desegregation. Our first prototype models an approach that links archival material, data sets, and narratives by augmenting the text of the landmark case Morgan versus Hennigan with local information and archival materials, including the images from the Boston Globe. And what we were really trying to do here is take case law, which most often nobody reads case law except lawyers and law students, but we really wanted to tie it to the humanities and digital humanities and make case law accessible to everyone, and to kind of give life to text through imagery to really bring these sort of major civil rights cases to life differently, to really teach people differently and to reach people differently. This is a relatively new thing that we're doing at the lab. Is we've been getting calls from people from many different places asking if they can come and work with us as researchers in residence. So we're so happy to have Sankop and Mari with us this year. Sankop is a critical design researcher in residence with NuLawLab, and Mariana is a legal designer in residence. She is joining us from the University of Sao Paulo, where she has recently co-founded the University of Sao Paulo Legal Design Lab. So she reached out to us to come and work with us and to participate in our seminar and to do projects with us. So we've really enjoyed getting to know both of these scholars. And each time we work with a researcher in residence, it really opens up it opens up our pedagogy and our practice. And we're active in learning, writing, and publishing with the people that come into our residency at NuLawLab. So one of the outcomes most recently in our work with Sankop is that Sankop has invited us to the Critical Legal Design Conference. And I really wanted to put this image in there because it's just so atypical of individuals in law school, but I really wanted to share that people that work in law do have a sense of humor. So Songkalp has invited us to make a presentation about critical design in law and how we can use critical design and scholarship from critical design to work with law students to help build the field of legal design, help change it, and help shape it. And this is why we value being able to work with artists and designers. The lab and the law school believe that there is a role for artists and designers in legal pedagogy. And we really feel that we can shape how we're doing community-based work and how we talk about critical legal and design issues. So now I'm going to take you through a couple of community-based projects to show you what that looks like. We've had the fantastic opportunity to be able to co-develop a project called Stable Ground, Boston. We have developed several collaborations with local artists and educators, cultural organizers, and community leaders to strengthen Stable Ground through this continued project. The project continues to evolve and the community continues to build trust with us. Collaborations with local artists are central to Stable Ground. This coming year, through Stable Ground, the NuLawLab is engaged with 3 artists in residence, a community storyteller, and we are expanding our work with local artist and organizer and educator Anthony Romero. The Stable Ground program creates an opportunity for visual and performing artists to develop their social-based artistic practice to become engaged in thoughtful, facilitated dialogue with community. Stable Ground addresses the complicated relationship among chronic housing insecurity, its psychological traumatic impact, and municipal housing policy through a participatory, community-based and cultural program structured to inform the work of the City of Boston's Office of Housing Stability. The project is centered on a residency program that embeds artists and legal designers and trauma experts into community settings that contribute to local visual performing arts exhibits and art-making events. These events have included facilitated conversations among artists, residents, activists, organizers, experts, and municipal leaders, all structured to inform the existing Office of Housing Stability, its services, and those in development. The cross-sector team formed by the Stable Ground Initiative was funded by the Kresge Foundation, and it represents a collaboration of 4 service-aligned organizations: the Lab, the Office of Housing Stability, Violence Transformed, and the Domestic Violence Institute. So I'm just going to share with you a little bit about the artist in residence and the residency program that we created through Stable Ground. We were so lucky to have been able to work with Lamerchi Fraser. Lamerchi Fraser is a public fiber artist, innovator. She works as a holographer, and she is also the Director of Education and Interpretation for the Museum of African American History. And these are some images from Lamerchi's practice in residency with us, where she worked with City Life, City Life is a housing justice organization. So she was working with a number of people connected to City Life in developing this fabric project. We also had the wonderful opportunity to work with Hakeem Raqib. Hakeem has owned and operated his own photography studio for the past 38 years in Boston. He's featured images, have been highlighted and shown in exhibitions, billboards, catalogs, advertisements, and other publications for decades. He's had clients including the Polaroid Corporation, Xerox, and the Boston Globes, Globe Magazine, travel magazines, Bay State banners. And he's connected to the Museum of National Center for African American Artists, the Museum of Fine Arts, Urban Arts, and is part of the Institute of Massachusetts College of Arts. We were so excited to be able to work with Hakeem. He really assisted us. He documented the entire Stable Ground project and produced so many wonderful images that help us to tell the story of our community engagement and the creative process that we used through Stable Ground. So Hakeem is a huge and valuable member of our team at Northeastern University School of Law and NuLawLab. And so again, he took so many wonderful images that helped inform our evaluation report, and we deeply respect his work. Ngoc Tran Vu is a Vietnamese American multimedia and transnational artist whose practice draws from her experience as a community organizer and healer. She was born in Vietnam and grew up in Dorchester, Massachusetts, where she's currently based. And Tran really is involved with a group called Not for Sale, where she's actively fighting for development without displacement. And we were really pleased to be able to work with and learn from Ngoc Tran Vu. And here's some images of the way that she works in community. So this is some of her work in Not for Sale, where she works collectively to help organize anti-displacement work and to build people's voice. And she uses many different creative strategies in her work to facilitate dialogue about displacement and resistance. And again, we were so happy to be able to be connected to Ngoc Tran Vu in our artisan residency program at Northeastern University School of Law with NuLawLab. And here's some images that I feel like are really powerful, is, people really beginning to create almost a people's policy and see what policy changes are needed. And so Not for Sale and Ngoc Tran Vu really helped us be able to build trust within Dorchester and beyond. Anna Meyer is another wonderful artist, a dancer who began her training in 1962 with Esther Brooks at the Cambridge School of Ballet on a Ford Foundation scholarship. After receiving scholarships from many different places, she joined the Boston Ballet and later studied or performed with Anna Rowe. In 1992, she founded her own studio. And we were really honored to be able to work with Anna Meyer through our artisan residency program. And here's some images of the way that she works with her dancers. A lot of these people are from the local hip hop community in Boston, where she works with and collaborates with these young dancers. They use dance, poetry, and music to talk about racism, community violence, and belonging. The year and a half that we spent with Anna Meyer really helped deepen our connections to local community organizers and local artists within the city of Boston. And so we really appreciate the way that Anna had made her contributions as an artist through our residency program at NuLawLab. So I'm just going to talk about the lab and its work. Stable Ground has these characteristics where we are putting cultural organizing at the center of of what we do in legal education. And we are centering those most impacted by housing instability because we worked really to find artists that were deeply embedded within a variety of different communities in Dorchester that were already working really closely with organizers and community members. So we really wanted to support existing cultural organizing. And then, through this process, we are noticing that we find emergent relationships and that we're able to build coalitions across these sort of different communities. And that we're able to tie that work into a network that we've developed at NuLawLab to kind of build this network and fuel it with other types of support. And that, this artist in residency does have a legal full focus, right? Is because the artists are working with our law school and informing us about the power of, cultural organizing and community building. For Stable Ground, we really feel that we build community by increasing an understanding of housing instability through the arts, and that we were able to support, existing cultural organizing in Dorchester and East Boston. And we certainly, with working with our city government, the Office of Housing Stability in the city of Boston, we feel that we really helped to build an appreciation for how cultural organizing could help inform the Office of Housing Stability. And we feel that this work and the way that we're doing this work and the way that we continue to do this work centers those that are most impacted by housing instability. We also, pull in two other networks. We are able to work with the right to counsel advocates, various city officials, and housing courts, These are all important aspects of the way that we build relationships and develop coalitions. We have this pre-existing network of practitioners. We also decided to work with an outside evaluator for this long-term project. And this way of working and working with artists and using cultural organizing as a strategy has really helped us develop long-term and evolving community-based partnerships. And we've really committed over time more and more to working with our partners to do joint fundraising, to continue this type of work to build social change in community. And so we feel that Stable Ground in this way of working has demonstrated the power of arts and culture to support activism and to change housing policy. We feel that we've helped the OHS, or the Office of Housing Stability, have a human-centered, more empathetic approach to the way that they do their work and communicate with the people that they serve. We feel that working with artists and working with cultural organizers has really elevated the voices of those most impacted by describing the severity of housing instability. We feel that we have done this work and we've educated participants and ourselves about housing policy. And that has become now a long-term agenda at NuLawLab and at Northeastern University School of Law. We feel that we've prepared and motivated people, mainly our students and others, to advocate and organize. We've also exposed law students to grassroots cultural organizing and new ways of working in community. How did Stable Ground heal and strengthen communities? We provided venues for creative expression and emotional processing. We connected people, institutions, and organizations in newer and deeper relationships. We've centered community voices, flipping the script about who gets to talk about what in what way. We've strengthened connective tissue outside formal venues, creating a deeper sense of community. We've expanded and supported different types of art-making practices. We have deepened resolve to continue the work in this way. How did Stable Ground demand and build towards change? We supported community-based organizations' ability to advocate and organize. We created a mediator between community-based organizations and the city. We expanded the ability for partners to work more closely with each other for a longer term. We laid the groundwork for policy change, which could be leveraged into long-term housing stability. It's long-term work. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our student engagement and the way that we do that through NuLawLab. So I'll start with our seminar, which is called Applied Design and Legal Empowerment. So our approach that we use is that students that enroll in our class explore problem-solving methodologies derived from the fields of product, systems, and service design as they apply them to a specific legal design problem. The class is open to both law and art students. I'm going to go through 3 projects with you today. The first one, this was our design question that we had. How might we equip legal advocates with tools to help migrants seeking asylum in the US? We felt that this was a very successful project. In this classroom, we have 6 art and design students at a master's level paired with 6 law students. And this is the question they approached during this seminar. What they created is that they created your roadmap, and they developed materials to support refugee advocates. So that these materials, the student team developed a series of paper tools, including a booklet for students to record their personal journey through the experience of going to do sort of support work in Dilley, Texas. They created a script to use as a guide in preparing refugees for credible fear interviews, and a series of graphic cards to help bridge the language gap. The work was carried forward and tested through a series of independent studies that followed. So the students had an opportunity to work with Professor Sarah Knaus, Dan Jackson, and myself, and they had the opportunity to work with our domestic violence clinic to test out some of the ideas. They had a better understanding of how to design something that is sort of would be trauma informed. So the students worked really closely on developing your roadmap. We also had the opportunity in 2016 to work with the Department of Justice. They called the lab up and wanted to find out if our seminar would review their website. So they were posed with the design question: how might we reimagine the external website of the US Department of Justice Civil Rights Division to be more responsive to the needs of people who think their civil rights are being violated? Their solution was an overhaul of key aspects of the website, including a new approach to highlighted case files, an interactive timeline detailing the path of a complaint that would arrive at the Office of Civil Rights. It would be a guided online interview that allowed users to determine whether or not they have a valid complaint. What our students found out is that this Office of Civil Rights just really needed to do better storytelling and to be more clear with the timeline of how long it takes to process a civil rights complaint. So it just really needed to be more user-friendly and empathetic and communicate in plain language. In the fall of 2019, we were asked by our public art program to help them create a new template contract that Northeastern University could use with artists to further its public art program. So the template that two students, Ramsey and Ashley, created with the lab, their template really struck the right balance between the university's institutional interests and the artist's intellectual property interests. It's now being used by Northeastern University as a template for contracts between university and artists. We really wanted to work with the students to help kind of make this a more fair process for artists. So we've done a number of collaborations. We've worked with a number of people, but I really want to hone in on one particular long-term collaborator that we've had. So I would like to introduce you to one of our key collaborators, Professor Anthony Romero. He is a colleague from the School Museum of Fine Arts, and he's a socially engaged artist. Working with Anthony, we developed a series of community engagements that were developed in collaboration with our NuLawLab, and I'm going to talk to you about some of that work. One of the first things that we worked with Anthony to develop was what we're framing as our anti-displacement lab. This work started through the lab seminar, where our design question was, how can we better inform people of their housing rights in Boston? This work became part of a project at the Institute for Contemporary Arts. First, we introduced the design question in Anthony to our students. Next, we developed a sub-project called When Home Won't You Stay that explored the interconnection between housing, displacement, and immigration. We pulled 7 law students into our seminar, and we worked with Anthony and with the Northeastern University Library and Archive. We wanted to explore the history of East Boston and activism to understand what strategies activists use to assert their legal rights in proactive defense against displacement and redevelopment. The students in our class ended up designing a zine, a banner. And next, we created a policy board game that utilized activist strategies as a mechanism for learning through gameplay. The game was called Fight Displacement, and it was designed to increase the understanding regarding housing policy, tenants, tenant rights, and activism. Fight Displacement explored how to make policy work fun because we wanted to engage young people and their communities. We also wanted to celebrate the history of advocates and activists. Fight Displacement got play tested at the Institute of Contemporary Arts in Boston. We continued working with the archivist to create a community archiving project that expanded the collaboration between our lab, East Boston residents, the Institute of Contemporary Art, and Anthony Romero. This is just an image of the game being tested at the ICA. So this work grew into something else. And we were wanting to collect stories from activists and community members to help record and build this East Boston Community Archive. And this archive also now has a special home at Northeastern University's archives and special collections. But this work fed into this work. First in thought, then in action. So we continued to keep doing this work, engaging the public, working with archivists, building the story, utilizing these sort of game strategies for playtesting things in our work with Anthony, that was part of an installation that happened at the Institute for Contemporary Art in Boston called First in Thought, Then in Action. So this is another image of Anthony, and this will make a little bit of sense soon, is that Anthony Romero, right before the pandemic, Anthony became artist in residence with the City of Boston and the Office of Immigrant Affairs. So that happened right before the pandemic. And so in our work with Anthony and the community and East Boston, we really had to pivot our collective work due to COVID. And that's happening all over the world, the way people have had to change their lives and change the way they were working. But what we found is that we've made a more substantial commitment to jointly support local organizations in fundraising for our continued work together. For example, my socially engaged art students at the Museum of Fine Arts created a set of stencils in collaboration with City Life, a housing justice organization. We had to reposition how we were doing our anti-displacement educational work and ask how do we continue organizing during the pandemic? What do we need to change? And how do we need to keep the momentum up doing this work right now? So here's an image of the stencils that the students were creating in my socially engaged art class at the School Museum of Fine Arts. But these were done in conjunction with Anthony Romero and Gabriela Cartienga from City Life Viva Urbana as part of the way that we continue to organize around housing justice in the city of Boston. And that, housing justice is equivalent to racial justice. And we do feel that housing is the cure. But the students produced a series of kits that were meant to help support organizers during this really critical time during the pandemic, when so many individuals were losing their income, and also at the same time were not able to pay their rent and under the threat of eviction, which has been stayed because the moratorium or a policy that was put in place to try to keep people housed is still in place, to keep people housed during the pandemic, that currently is still in place. But we've been anticipating that would lift. So we really decided to pivot our work in response to this critical issue. Well, at the same time during the pandemic, we know that we really we have a domestic violence clinic, and we worked with our clinic because there was an uptick in domestic violence during the lockdown and pandemic. And the lab worked quickly to figure out how to pivot our domestic violence clinical work that would support families in the lockdown. So during this time, we moved to working with some technologists to develop a new tool that would allow clients to be in better communication when they were under lockdown. But we also created a court form that would do outreach, and we developed we had to do some joint fundraising because many of the shelters were not able to receive families that needed assistance during this time. So we had to find an alternative way to house people. So we worked with a local area hotel to try to place people so they could get support from our domestic violence clinic. But this was, again, a collaboration between our Domestic Violence Institute, app developer Quadrant 2, and another law school, Suffolk Law School Lit Lab. And our goal was to provide victims of intimate partner abuse in Boston with a remote law school assistants consistent with the way that we operate our clinics. So we just had to redesign the service. And so again, looking at the value of integrating art and design into services like this, this is an example of how powerful that can be and how critical designers and other types of creative thinkers are needed to kind of create these social responses or crisis responses. So, really stable ground. We had to reposition everything that we were doing and all of our resources. We couldn't meet in public, and now we're in this situation where many people still haven't been able to, return to their jobs and, are unable to pay the rent. So we really shifted our work to, create from stable ground, the way we were working with our local area artists and members. We really shifted the work, and we just shifted the stable ground work and to this, we decided to develop a coalition. So our Boston Housing Support Station and coalition looks like this. So all of the same people that we were working with before, we just regrouped and reorganized. When reflecting on the prompt of fire again, yes, I agree with Lucy Lepard that artists alone can't change the world, and neither can anyone else alone. But we can certainly choose to be a part of a world that is changing, and we can certainly try to find new ways to work across disciplines and with each other to create these changes that are needed in our society to sustain, support, and create a sense of belonging for one another.